a super important, relevant topic for people who are currently technical writers, or if you would like to become a technical writer. So that's what we'll discuss today, technical writing as a best practice. And I am Clarissa Watson. I'm a senior technical writer and content manager at ConsenSys. So next slide. So ConsenSys software is, maybe you guys have heard of it. It's a blockchain software company founded by Joseph Lubin, who was one of the co-founders of Ethereum. And the mission of the company is really to build blockchain software and tools to realize the vision of Web3 as the next model for the internet. And I think the most well-known product within the portfolio is MetaMask. Who here uses MetaMask? Just like give me a digital thumbs up, or you can unmute and say yes. Anybody?
Yeah, I use.
Cool. Okay. I see some hands. That's great. So another popular product that a lot of people know. Yeah, Richard. Cool. Let me just like open up the chat. I didn't realize this. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, so another very common or popular service that ConsenSys has built is Infura. It was actually the first API solution created for Ethereum as well as IPFS, and now Infura supports many other networks. Truffle, which is a DevNet, also one of the first. I think the only other competitor out there, or parallel service, would be Hardhat. And then Diligence, which is a security, a blockchain security and auditing company, as well as Codify and Quorum, some of the lesser known, but still part of the portfolio. So yeah, that's ConsenSys, and that's where I work. So obviously lots of technical writing happens here. Next slide. So just to kind of set the stage for the discussion today, I'll just talk about how I got into technical writing. Maybe that is something that some of you are thinking today as a career path, or maybe you're already deep in the weeds. And as well as who are subject matter as experts. I think it's super important to know who they are and who they're not. Why do they matter? And then subject matter experts as like a best practice and a guiding principle for technical writing. And the final note. So that's what I'll be discussing. Next slide. So this is a little bit about how I got to technical writing. Next slide. So yeah, I mean, like as a kid growing up, I always really loved to write. I loved to read and write, and I kind of followed that passion into my career. I studied journalism and studied marketing in my undergrad. And out of university, I got a job marketing the internet portfolio at a telecommunications company. And it was there that I learned what a copywriter was. And I had no idea what this was. I hadn't learned about it before. I didn't know it existed. And I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be like on the marketing side and the business side, but as a writer. So I did that at an ad agency called McLaren McCann. It's, I think, one of the largest in the world. And I noticed as I was writing that I was very engaged when it came to technology. Like I really loved writing about software. And at McCann, I was writing about all kinds of brands, all kinds of products and services. So we had General Motors as a client, so Cadillac and Ford and Dodge, and like writing for all these different types of vehicles, and it was okay. And then Microsoft was a client, and as soon as I started to write about tech, I was immediately like just very engaged and curious. So always follow what makes you curious. And I followed that into a specialization in digital media and a master's degree. And at the time, blockchain wasn't really on the scene yet. I graduated in 2016 and I started working in a data science company and was head of marketing there, but really producing a lot of technical content as a part of our marketing strategy. And it was then that I learned about Ethereum. And I got my first break into blockchain and technical writing at the Graph protocol. Which is an indexing and a decentralized indexing query for Web3. Maybe you guys have heard of it. And, you know, what I know today is that Web3 really requires strong communicators for adoption. So I think technical writers, we have a responsibility to really demystify what the tech is and to express it with, the utmost clarity. And it's very technical by nature. But people, when they start to work in blockchain, they say, oh, but he's technical and she's technical, or she's not, or he is. Like, we're all technical to a degree because that's just the nature of the industry. So that's a little bit about how I got into the discipline of technical writing. Next slide. And so who are subject matter experts? I think it's a really important question to ask and to have a clear answer as a technical writer. So next slide. So yeah, so really who qualifies? And it's the answers are very simple. They're people that have firsthand experience. They're the people who are building the technology that you are writing about. So engineers, developers, founders, CTOs, the people that are really in there writing the code, designing the products, and have that really deep technical firsthand experience. Subject matter experts can also be people who are more into the theoretical side and not so much on the, the practical application, but, academics, people who are kind of, versed in the theory and the history of a particular technology. And then, end users. So people who are using the technology that you're writing about. So a tangible example would be at ConsenSys, I work with Infura a lot. And if we are writing about a specific product feature, I will speak directly to the engineer and the product owner who have been responsible for creating that software. And they are going to tell me firsthand how it works, how they built it, how it can be used. A lot of that is also, laid out in technical documentation. But for technical writing, for a marketing purpose, which is more my area of expertise, you really want to give it context. So speaking to the people who have built the technology, firsthand experience, these are subject matter experts. So next slide. And why do they matter? This is, I think, a super important question to reflect on. Why do we want to use subject matter experts as a best practice in technical writing? Why does it matter? Next slide. Well, because today the truth is very fragile. It's extremely fragile. We have the advent of misinformation and fake news with the rise of, the Web 2 model of social networks, really creating these massive centralized networks that propagate information that isn't necessarily truthful or based on fact. And years ago when this didn't exist, there were people like fact checkers, and before a journalist or a publication could publish a statement or a fact about something, it was reviewed. And now today, with the ease of these publication tools, we just don't have that. We also live in an age of the attention economy. So everybody is wanting your attention online, and we as the end users have very short attention spans. So there's this clickbait type of content that the headline is extremely attractive and attention grabbing, but then when you click it, you see that content, the actual contents of the article is just fluff. Like it's not actually saying anything at all. We have things like vaporware, where an organization will make an announcement about a technology, and it's and they speak about it like it already exists, but it doesn't, and it never comes to fruition. I guess the last one would be scams. And I think in crypto, we've seen a lot of scams, but we know that scammers and fooling people with malicious intent, it certainly didn't start with crypto, and it's not going to end with crypto. So there's also, subject matter experts protect us from all of these types of misinformation and this fragility of truth that we find ourselves in. So this is why they matter. They matter because when we publish something that we've written, we're writers. I'm very passionate about the writing that I publish because I consider it an expression of myself. I want it to be truthful, and subject matter experts keep us truthful. And they, protect our audiences. They help evolve our audience's consciousness and understanding with the truth. They're often well-intentioned as well, because they're likely very passionate about the subject at hand, right? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So, like I said, subject matter experts as a best practice. When you're out there in the world as a technical writer, and you realize that you've written a piece that doesn't actually include information from a subject matter expert, if you have the opportunity to include them, definitely do it, because it is a guiding principle, like I said. So next slide. Use them whenever you can. Like I said, at ConsenSys, when I'm writing, if I'm writing a piece about, a product and it's a product announcement, like I said, I'll speak to the engineers and the product owners who built it. But if I'm writing a piece that's more about, maybe the cultural implications of blockchains, then I'm using, open source information, then I'll want to reach out to someone who on my team, like, let's say if I can get their time, like our CTO, or one of the founder of Infura or Quorum, they will have really deep insight into some of the social and cultural and business implications of blockchain. So yeah, use them whenever you can. Don't show something. Don't tell. You want to show that something is the way that it is through facts and through proof points and through qualifying data. You don't want to just tell. So you can use direct quotes. If you do an interview style, we see in press releases for blockchain a lot of quotes, and you see them in press releases in general, but specifically in blockchain, because it is so technical and hard for mainstream audiences to understand. Directly quoting the subject matter expert, the engineer or the developer, can really help bring clarity. and if you can't directly quote them, just paraphrase as best you can, cite your references, make attributions so that the information that you're writing in your content is attributable to the subject matter expert. And always make sure to establish that rapport and that trust with the builders within your industry or your company, so that you can reach out to them when you're writing something, and they will say yes or no, or that would be some practical uses of why they're so valuable, and how you can use them. Next slide. And the reason why this matters is because we're all here to tell a story. Life is a narrative, and as a technical writer, you don't have to compromise creativity for facts. You can really use them both. And I think that subject matter experts are going to help you with just creating really great content that can create clarity in this wild world of Web3. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, I think that Web3 for adoption needs strong communicators. We need great tech. We need reliable tech. We need infrastructure, and we need, everything down to transaction finality and data availability and all that. But we need people to explain it to other people. And that's what technical writers do. So just use them to enrich whatever narrative and whatever story you're telling. Next slide. And that's really the end of what I have to share today. If you want to follow me on Twitter, there's my Twitter handle. I tweet about the industry and about ConsenSys and other musings. I'm a big fan of poetry. And there's my email if you have any questions about technical writing as a career path. So yeah, that's all I've got, Wisdom. I'm going to pass it back to you. I'm happy to do a Q&A if that's part of the agenda today.
Yeah, that should be the next section. Yeah, thank you so much for your time and for making it easier for us to understand what or who are subject matter expert. So guys, do we have any question? I know most of you are busy because I gave them an assignment and I've reviewed few of their work, and most are quite busy with that. So I know, just keep the assignment aside and just come up. So this knowledge will definitely help you also working on the assignment. All right, guys. So any question? Okay, we have a question in the chat. So say thank you, Clarissa.
Oh, I see a question from Richard. How can I become a subject matter expert? That's a very good question. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think
Yes.
You can see this. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a very good question. Like I said, you would have to have firsthand experience in something and be, deeply involved in it, whether that's practically through building it or, theoretically by studying it. So, pick a subject that you're passionate about and just really become one with it. If you're very, very passionate about design, then maybe you want to become a UX designer and you become a subject matter expert in what a beautiful interface for software application is. Or if you really love pasta, maybe you make every single kind of pasta that Italy has to offer. So I think it's really about choosing something that you're passionate about and just learning as much about it as possible and then being able to share that knowledge with different audiences.
All right, thank you. So, any other question, guys? Okay, so if we don't have any other question, that will be fine. So I have her email, and I will also share the slide on our GitHub repo. So the GitHub repo is open source, so anybody can go there. So those that want to learn, probably after this program, they'll still have access to it. So it's open for all. Okay, so we have another question from Dane.
Okay, let me. I did see that. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, so would you advise early career technical writing